you're a contractor doing $2 to $10 million a year and still sending your own invoices, scheduling crews, or chasing insurance checks, this is for you. You don't have a lead problem, you have a leverage problem. In this talk today, we're breaking down the biggest lies in the trades, that the grind is the path to growth. Spoiler, it's not. You're buried in the wrong work, and it's killing your time, your margins, and your ability to scale. We're going to show you exactly how to spot the red zone activities that you should never touch again, and how the most efficient contractors are buying their time back without hiring somebody themselves. Let's get into it. So back when I was in the field, I always used to think that I had a time problem. I was running out of time every day. There was always something else left to be done that I didn't get to. And it turns out I didn't have a time problem. What I had was a delegation problem.
Contractors at 2 to 5 million think they need more leads, but most are leaking the ones they already have. You're not scaling. You're just hiring yourself into 5 roles and doing it all worse than you think. If you're personally sending job updates, chasing checks, confirming inspections, and you're doing 2 to 5 million a year, this is for you.
You're not burned out, you're buried. And if your business can't run without you sending some emails, it's not a business, it's a job with a hostage clause.
Let me paint the picture. I had a call last week with a roofing contractor that was wearing at least 3 hats that they shouldn't be wearing. But their problem was they didn't know where to begin with hiring the right person. They knew they needed help. They had no idea where to begin. What we can do at HireBus is get you the job descriptions and dial those in so that you know exactly who to bring into your business and when.
So, Michael, tell me some of the stuff that this guy was doing that you think he shouldn't have been, or maybe some things that you saw from the outside looking in that you said, hey, maybe you're not doing this as well as you think.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing with this particular owner was we had to determine, are they better at selling or are they better at producing jobs? Because they maybe weren't at a stage where they could completely, work on the business all the time. They had to be in it a little bit, but they were doing all of the sales, all of the production, all of the post-production, trying to drive referrals and all of those things. So really those 3 hats are kind of the buckets that I would say they were wearing. And the first thing I talked to them about was, hey, here's our job description for a production manager or production role. Here's our job description for a sales and sales manager role. And here's kind of, our customer support or success job description. Which of these is your specialty? And that's the hat we need to wear. And when we determine the hat that they need to wear so that they can be focused on that and do it well, then that leads us to be able to determine the roles that they're going to hire for. And in this case, it was that production manager. Their sub-crews were showing up and they were constantly frustrated because, they were short materials or they didn't have clear communication. And it really boiled down to the owner was on a roof trying to sell it when they needed to be actually communicating with their sub-crews. And so we're communicating with their clients at post-job, that they really dropped the ball post-sale. And so what we were able to do is let them focus on selling because that's where they felt like they were the best asset to the business. And we're going to go hire them a production manager to manage all of their subcontractor crews, make sure that they have all the materials, those kind of things.
Yeah, I think about when I was in a roofing business and I was in that similar situation. And the moment that I realized when I needed to get out of the weeds was I was dropping both production. I was causing problems for myself in production because I didn't have enough time. And I was also causing myself problems on the sales end because I didn't have enough time. And so I was jumping between, do I administer production related things today or do I go respond to those leads? And it turned out both ends of that were both ends of this were having problems get caused. They were all due to me not having enough time and me wearing too many hats and focusing on things that, frankly, I shouldn't have been focusing on. But I was doing it in a way where I was doing it because I was trying to keep our costs down, trying to, save our business money and just do it all myself. And there just comes a breaking point where you realize, hey, I'm losing more money by not letting somebody else do this than I would be by just hiring somebody else to do this. But that opens up really the next big question of like, okay, where the hell do I start with all of this? This is something that leads really well into the idea of like a green zone versus a red zone. And if people aren't familiar with the green zone, red zone is essentially think of the things that you do and is it something that gives you energy or it's something that takes your energy away? There's some people out there that nothing could make them happier than sitting behind a computer doing job costing and accounting and AR and all this stuff, in an Excel and QuickBooks, and never talking to a client. And you ask that same person to go talk to a client, go sell a job, like that is their red zone. That is their thing that, oh my gosh, I could do it, but it's going to take so much of my energy. And so then they're going to try and naturally avoid the things that they don't like to do or they're not as good at and stay focused on the things they're good at. And so when we can find what is that green zone, the strategic, high impact work in your business, closing deals, leading people, building systems, growing processes, those are the things that you should be doing to grow your business. And the red zone that we see a lot of people get stuck in is really admin type tasks. It always boils down to that, where there's something that needs to get done behind the scenes that just takes so much of your time to do. It's not that it's difficult, it's just takes you time and effort. And it's often something that when you rank the importance of it compared to going out and closing a deal versus doing some follow-ups to last year's estimates, we know what our sales people are going to tend to do. It's like, let's go for that shiny object, not go back to do the boring stuff because it's their red zone. So like I have a guy that I worked with. I mean, he was still scheduling his own inspections. He was sending his own invoices. He was chasing insurance paperwork on those jobs that he's doing. And like, where does his day go when he spends 2 hours on hold trying to get a hold of an adjuster? What could he have done with that extra 2 hours on Wednesday versus waiting on hold? And so these are the things where once he started working with us, in the first 2 weeks, we were able to find 14 hours that we just eliminate off of his plate without really any effort and allow him to focus on just doing what he liked to do, which was closing deals. And then the next month, he closed 6 more jobs that he had closed his prior record month, all because he had time to focus on his green zone, which was meeting people, selling roofs.
Yeah. Well, I would even say too, like hearing your personal story and then hearing that story, Chris, it's there. Their closing percentage, or let's just take closing percentage out. Their green zone activity is going to get that much better because they're not spending time on red zone activity. And that's what I talked to, the contractor last week about as well. I said, hey, you don't even have a baseline for closing because it's you and a couple other people in your business, but you're doing the primary sales. When you get this production manager in, your sales conversions are going to go up. And take it one step further. Like, what are your referrals going to look like? Because now you're able to pour into that sales process the entire way through and make sure that you're giving that 5-star experience, which is going to then drive more referrals and more business. And now you've got your production manager, and now your production manager is going to need another VA with SMA because they have a whole bunch of red zone tasks that, they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. And I think of people that are stuck. Maybe they're like, hey, I'm at 5 million and my goal is to get to $10 million. But every time I get that extra million, it's like the problems and headaches just grow exponentially. It's like there's 10 times as many problems now that I've got this. And a lot of times this points back to like having no process, having no foundation. But you start putting yourself in a position that you're just like, we keep doing more of the stuff we don't like to do because we haven't thought of a good way to get out of, us being the ones to do it. And the more your business grows, the more of those red zone tasks you have, and the more you learn to hate your business and burn out in it. And it's like, what the hell am I doing this in the first place? And so, some of it is around like making sure we're looking to bring people in and hiring people. But a lot of times it's more about understanding, what it is we're looking for in that growth goal, and then really root cause it. Are we spending our time on the things that are going to get us there, or what are those bottlenecks that prevent us from getting that next million each time? And so a lot of it is, looking at what you're doing and figuring out where your team spends their time, where you spend your time. And if you're honest with yourself and you did an assessment, I always recommend the Buy Back Your Time book by Dan Martell. There's a time and energy audit task that he walks people through where look at what you spent the last 2 weeks on. Mark everything you did that gave you energy in green, take anything that was zapping your energy and put it in red. And think about your workday like a battery, where those green zone tasks maybe even charge your battery up, even though you spent an hour working. Those red zone tasks are depleting your battery twice as fast. And so, you get through some of the stuff you don't like to do. By the end of the day, do you have the energy to make a follow-up phone call to check back in with these homeowners? No, because you just spent all your energy on something else that on a good day where those red zone tasks aren't coming up and taking all your time, you have that energy to do them. And so this is where, back to your point of like finding that ability to put somebody into a seat that all they want to do is these activities, and that we're not asking them to do something that is, beyond that scope, so that they can just stay happy. And every afternoon their sales appointments are now like, I'm showing up to the door smiling versus being all pissed off because I have more paperwork to do an hour after I get done with this appointment.
Yeah. So many great things there. I think, like you said, the biggest thing is, and I think to myself, because we all have you're never going to fully get out of red zone activity. We all have them. And I think people do them in one of two places. They try to knock them out first thing in the morning to start their day so that they don't have to think about them again, or they try to end their day with them. And either way, it's going to zap my battery to start the day. And then, like you said, what does the rest of my day look like? Or I'm just thinking about them for the entire day as like, okay, I still have to do this, this, and this. And so getting to where you have the fewest number of red zone activities that you can have on your plate in a day has to be your number one goal. Like when you're thinking about that, and, not even your number one goal, when you're thinking about that from a team perspective, how do I make sure that I'm putting people in the right seat to do the right activities? And how do I eliminate as many red zone activities for them as humanly possible?
So what do you say to these guys that they have this goal of reaching $10 million and wondering why they can't get there?
I mean, it's pretty simple. A lot of them are doing $20 an hour work and wondering that exact question. So you're doing $20 an hour work and wondering, why can't I hit $10 million in revenue?
Yeah. People staying in their green zone is where they make money. The red zone work is what makes them exhausted. So let's get into, why haven't more people figured out a way to get stuff off their plate? Why haven't they delegated, and what can they do about it? And I think it really comes down to a couple things. And a lot of the contractors I talk to now on the other side of the fence, it comes down to ego, fear, or maybe general confusion. And I figure we can both kind of talk about this because you see this a lot of times in the hiring process for, I'm an owner that is looking to grow a team, but they've got a combination of all of this that when they come to you, that's part of the problem that you're going to help them solve. And so, that owner, I'm sure you've had a conversation like I have with a roofing contractor who said, nobody can do it like me. And it's like, you're right. You're the only roofer out there that is stuck at $3 million and can't do an estimate, by having another team member go out to do that. You're the only owner who could go out and do that estimate on a residential 612 up and over for 30 squares. Like, yep, you're right. And even if we, get a little more complex, when we think about it, we got to break it down. And that's where it comes into, it's like that ego then quickly turns into fear of, nobody else can do it like me because I don't know how to tell somebody else to do this, because when I've tried this in the past, it didn't work out. I trained a guy and then he went and worked for somebody else, or he started his own thing. And it's like, they're referencing a data point that they haven't had enough reps to really be sure what their problem is, but they're using one bad scenario of their past example to limit, their growth. And I think a lot of them too, it's like they're a little bit scared, they're a little bit egocentric where they think they're the only ones can do it, but it just kind of boils that down to like, well, maybe there is a way to do it, but I don't know. And it goes back to that ego a little bit of like, hey, when it's tough because you've known so much, you always know how to fix it, but here's a problem that you don't know how to solve. And I think that's where most people, when they raise their hand, they just say like, hey, I know that I don't know where to start here. And that's the one where I think people, it's like, dude, just open up a conversation, sit down with me, and let's talk about maybe just what do I see, looking at it from a different point of view than you do. Because if you knew what to delegate, you would have already done it. Then that's where we come in. We can help you think through this. And even if it's not something where you're ready to work with one of us, let us help you think and set the stage of that, what you need to do today, so that you are ready for some people down the road and what you could do in your own workflows today to ease that time commitment on your plate.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm going to go in the opposite order of which you said those, because I think it starts with the confusion. I think the confusion actually is what drives the ego, if that makes sense. And so what I mean by that is they don't know what to take off their plate. They don't know when they should take it off their plate. And from a hiring or even delegating to a VA standpoint, it's usually reactionary. It's when the plate is so full that I've got to do something. And so I have that level of confusion. And then what happens is I've either hired or I've tried to bring in a VA in a state of confusion, in terms of I didn't know what I should hire, I didn't know what I should outsource, I didn't even know when I should do it, or now I'm reacting to it, and it didn't work because I didn't know what, I didn't know when, I was reactionary, so it didn't work. I've been down this path before. I've tried a VA. I've tried hiring so many sales reps. They they come in and they think they know everything and blah blah blah. My guess is they probably don't have a great onboarding process because they were reactionary in their hiring or outsourcing process. So they probably don't have a great onboarding process. It doesn't work. And then that ego doesn't, like, to me, that ego is developed because, I have tried this before and it didn't work. They couldn't sell nearly as well as I could sell. They couldn't do this nearly as well as I could do this. But I probably also could look in the mirror and say, I probably didn't give them the onboarding or the training or the opportunity to get to where they could do it like I'm doing it. And to your point, imagine all, like, when you're, as an owner, you're wearing all these hats, and I don't think either of us are questioning how hard these owners work. It's more of, hey, what hats can you take off to be better at the others? Like, take the darn production manager hat off, go hire somebody, and then as you start selling more jobs, you're going to realize, hey, my production manager has all this admin work, and now I need to go get them a VA. And it's just this beautiful cycle of, I'm doing all these things. And then once you really dial in your sales process and that's all you're focused on, well, then we're going to be able to go and help you hire another sales rep. Or maybe you start with a VA to take some of the admin tasks off, and you say, this is really working well, let's go hire another sales rep. And then eventually I'm going to need more people in production, and I'm going to need another VA. But that's kind of how you scale it. I think that, like I said, it all starts at the confusion stage. How do I get to where I have a better pulse or understanding of what I need, when I need it, and how do I get that?
Yeah, and I think if somebody's like, okay, so then what do I do? It's like, start with that time and energy audit of where did you spend your time? What did you do? And what are the things you need to pull off of your plate first? Because when we go back to like the past training of, hey, when I brought somebody on board in the past, like, did you even know what the tasks were that you were giving them? And sometimes it's like, I just know that I'm overworked and I got a lot of shit on my plate. And it's like, yeah, they'll be in the truck with me and I'll tell them and they'll kind of know what I need them to know as I go. And it's like, well, yeah, no wonder it's tough to think about how am I going to, hire a remote team member who's, not present locally. I normally just have them sit in the truck and ride with me. Now, what am I going to do? And it's like, okay, well, step one, let's think through what it is you need done. Go through that task list of all the things that have to happen. It's like the leads need to come in, then they got to get responded to, then the estimates got to get prepped. Like, what are all of those things that if you didn't need to be in the office to do them, could somebody else do those? And think through starting there of like, okay, here's what I'm actually going to ask of this candidate who's coming in to work with me. And I think a lot of times when people are coming to us at SMA wondering like, how does this process work? How do you pull this knowledge out of my brain? Like, I don't know. How do you guys figure out how to delegate this stuff? And that's where we focus back on mapping processes and understanding your process. And so we have a great process to help pull your process off and then take best practices of how it should be done and then make them fit for your business. Whether you have already mapped those out or you've never done it before, we can help with that. But for somebody who's like, I'm not even at $3 million yet. I'm just trying to get to $1.5 million, $2 million. Start by mapping your own process. Go get a whiteboard. Go get some giant sticky notes. Literally write down everything that happens on every step of the way through your CRM job stages. And it's like, what are the tasks that we should be doing or the tasks we do on a good day but forget on the bad days? And then understand which are the most important to your business. Because I think oftentimes we will always jump in fighting fires. And I can think of it myself, like, I was focusing my time on the wrong things because I was just letting whatever popped up be the thing that I said was the most important. It's like somebody's angry and they're grumpy. I got to go deal with it. And it's like, well, I do, but at the same time, could I send somebody else to go deal with that customer so that I could architect a new workflow for us of like, what should we do to prevent this from happening? Is there a checklist we need to do? Is there something I could put in Company Cam to make sure that we take these pictures so that at the end of the job, I'm not going out to deal with a grumpy homeowner as an owner of a $5 million roofing contracting company because somebody scratched a screen or siding that was already there at the beginning of the job. And all of this started because we didn't have a good process for how we document that beginning of job. And so I think there's a lot of things where people, the feeling of like the word is kind of like exasperated. It's just like, I don't know what the fuck to do anymore. There's so much, there's a million things that are always coming at me. And like, I can't even figure out what's the most important. And I think that's where like going back to a book like Buy Back Your Time, talking to people like us where you can just help me understand what am I not seeing, what am I missing. I would tell anybody who listens to this, like write down your process, even if it's on a sheet of paper, write down your process and see where's the stuff that pops up, where you're having issues in the business. And let's see, how do you get some of those things to happen? Maybe it's automations. Like you said, we were talking earlier, like the first place to start with a lot of this, you start with software. What can you use software for to get things off your plate? Then you go to people, remote people, in person. There's a list that you're going to be at a different point depending on who's listening to this, and what we recommend may be different based on where you're at in your business.
Yeah, so I think the one thing I would piggyback on that, as you're building out that list, I love it. It's where are those fires currently coming from? And I think that's number one. Like, how do we prevent those? And then I think one of the best things when I talk to contractors, when we truly get past that entry piece of the conversation, and they kind of open up, where you're deficient in your business, or where you want to do, I want to do more of that, or I need to do more of that. Those are lines I hear from contractors every single day. I know I need to be doing more of that, or I know I want to be doing more of that. And that even goes way back to my days at Company Camp, where, how many photos are you taking on a job on average? Not enough was generally the answer I would get. And it was not because their team wasn't worthy, but they didn't have the standard operating procedure, and they didn't have the tool. As soon as you get those things in that situation, it's far easier. But I think that's the place to help you understand, okay, this is what I need to be doing more of, or I'm not doing enough of. Well, could a VA help me with those things? Yeah, that, and that. Well, would it actually behoove me to bring somebody in that can strategically build something out on my production side of things to drive happier clients? Well, yeah, it probably would. Okay, well then that's where HireBus comes in. And we really can have these conversations with you and help you kind of triage the situation and say, hey, let's do this, this, and this. And I think that's going to give you more time to go do this thing over here.
Every contractor we talk to, they all say the same things. If you want to find out what's actually draining your time, go to smasupport.us. Check out our outsourcing evaluation tool, where you can see the money that you're losing in your business by doing a lot of these admin tasks for yourself. If you message us the words red zone, we'll send you a cheat sheet with 10 things that could save you 10 hours a week by not doing them in your business. So Michael, the people that are stuck in a spot knowing they need somebody else but aren't sure where to start, what should they do?
Yeah, so I think there's two really great options. You could just jump on a call with us, and we can kind of talk through your current, team. We can do a hiring audit. We can kind of do a time audit with you, similar to what Chris is talking about with SMA. To achieve that, just go to hirebus.com/SMA, and you can book a time with our team. The other thing that we have that I think is super valuable is we've got a role blueprints thing that we put together that's got all sorts of different roles, job descriptions, and everything. And I think that's even like a really good place to start, is just understanding what other companies have out in their business. Like, what other roles do people have? And you can get that by going to bit.ly/SMA-blueprints. So bit.ly/SMA-blueprints, and we'll get you the download for that as well. So hirebus.com/SMA or bit.ly/SMA-blueprints. Would love to chat with you guys. And like Chris said, even if you don't use either of our services, I think just having those conversations and that open dialogue can really help open your eyes to things that will drive your business forward.
Thank you to everybody who spent that time listening to me and Mike talk about stuff. We'll see you next time.